Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna just apologize right up front here for the lighting today. It is a bit crazy. It keeps changing. There's clouds going over the sun, so the exposure is gonna kind of go back and forth, and sometimes it'll be dark and sometimes it'll be too bright. That is what it is. So today we are doing a bit of a different video. I don't think I've ever done a video like this on YouTube, but I do them every month on Patreon. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, to share with you all so you can see some of what is going on over there on Patreon. And every month there, I do a call for entries, and every single patron at every level gets a chance to submit a piece of work that they have made that they'd like to be critiqued, that they'd like to have the opportunity to have critiqued. And then they all vote on one another's work to see which one they want me to make a critique video out of. So last month we had a bunch of entries, a bunch of submissions, and since there were so many, and since I'm getting ready to go on maternity leave, I'm actually, as you guys are watching this, I probably am on maternity leave. I wanted to do a little extra video, a little additional gratitude and love just to my Patreon community and to the community here on YouTube, just to do an additional critique video and feature all of the pieces that were submitted. So I think there were 8 pieces total. 2 were getting dedicated videos, which will only be available on Patreon. So my patrons already have access to those. And then I want to do this video to cover the remaining 6 pieces and just do a little mini critique on each of them. So each one will have one thing that I think is working really well about it and one thing that I think could be improved. So you get to see the piece that I'm talking about and hopefully pointing to some of the specific areas in a way that makes sense that you guys can see it. So I'm just going to hop right over there to screen recording and get started. Real quick, before I do that, I want to say a big thank you to everybody who submitted these pieces and who is brave and who has given me the privilege of talking about them, and all of us the privilege of learning from them. So please be so kind and loving to these people in the comments. Give high fives and pats on the back and appreciation for them being brave and willing to share their work with us. So thank you to everybody. All of their info will be in the description box. So please go find them on social media, follow them, give them some love in the comments here. I'm gonna jump over, as I said, to the screen recording and we will get started. Okay, so first up is this beautiful painting of a dahlia. I'm gonna have the artist's name on the screen somewhere, so just keep an eye out for that as we go through each piece. But we're starting off with this dahlia painting, and one thing I think is working really beautifully overall is the color. It feels really vivid without being too saturated, which gives the flower a true sense of realism. It looks like just a real dahlia that's sitting in the sunlight, in nice full bright sunlight. So I think overall the color is the real strong point of this piece. The thing I think could be improved is the structure. So overall, if we look kind of close up here, there are some areas where it's not quite clear what is under and what is over. And related to the structure point, I think some areas could use some increased shadow. So I think this really strong shadow here is working very well. You can see pretty clearly that these petals are underneath these petals, but I think there could be another shadow maybe right in here that would amplify that sense of this petal being underneath this petal. And then there are some other shadow areas, like right here, for example, where it feels like the shadow could just be stronger. And overall, I think there are probably a number of areas in the piece, like little tiny areas that should be a much darker value to really give that sense of form, especially because it's in the true, it looks like it's in true bright sunlight. There would be mostly a lot of really light, vivid areas, but then there will be some really dark areas that indicate there's a strong shadow from that natural sunlight. All right, so moving on to the next piece. So right off the bat, the thing that really jumps out to me is the red. The red here in the berries just feels spot on. So again, I would say color, and not just color, but values as well. There's a nice variation between the really bright, more saturated reds and some of the deeper, darker reds. And the artist is doing an excellent job at using those colors and values to communicate the form. So I can really get a sense for this being a dimensional subject. It feels really kind of luminous and and ruby-like the way a gelled strawberry topping would. The cake needs a little bit of development. So this area feels like it has been given so much love and so much care and attention. And then the cake, it's a bit challenging because it's a lighter value. So I definitely see that. But overall, I think the cake just needs a bit more development. So it feels like it can compete with what's going on up here. Right now, this area just feels like it's not quite done yet. And then related to that, I would guess that this little bit here, it looks like to make the perspective work, to me, this area needs to come up a little bit and be maybe a little bit straighter. Right now, it feels like there's just something slightly off with the perspective there. So overall, I would say the strawberries, the red, that's like a real strong point. And then the cake could use some development so that there's a little bit more detail and interest, and it will help it stand up to what's going on up here. Okay, moving on to the next piece. All right, so here we've got this burger painting, and the thing that pops out to me right away is that there's a lot of really nice texture going on, particularly in the meat here. The artist has done a great job at capturing that kind of charred texture, the charred texture of meat. And then around the sesame seeds, I really like how there's that just subtle little shadow indicating that those sesame seeds are popping up off the bun. So I think the texture is a real strong point here, and the artist has done a good job capturing that and communicating that texture. The thing I think could be improved is the values overall need some development. So if we zoom in a little bit here, we can see this is pretty much the only dark value. These are all medium or very light throughout the whole rest of the piece. So even if you just kind of step back from it a little bit, the dark area of the meat just is very loud and calls a lot of attention to itself and almost kind of takes over some of these more subtle areas. So I would guess that there are, especially in here, in between the different toppings, there are some little areas probably of a very, very dark value that could be added in there. You wouldn't necessarily have to darken the values, say, of the tomato overall, but what you could do is get down in this little crevice where this tomato kind of meets the ketchup and indicate that this is a really, really dark value, which would kind of give it more of that sense of dimension and help push it back a little bit. And doing that throughout the piece is going to really help everything feel more cohesive, and it's going to help these areas that are kind of a little bit washed out right now and having a hard time competing. It's going to help them compete with this really, really dark area. Overall, another lovely piece. So we're just going to move right on to the next one. Okay, so we have a portrait here, as you can see. I think what is working really well in this piece for me, what really kind of speaks to me, is the color and temperature shifts in the skin, going from some of these cooler pinks around the edges here to these warmer oranges and yellows. It is really nice overall, and it has a sense of form and volume. So the artist is using those colors not just to communicate emotion, but also to communicate a sense of there being of this being a dimensional object. They're using the colors to give the face that sense of form. And I also really like the 3/4 perspective here. I think that that just works well in the composition. It's an interesting perspective to view a face from. So that's one thing that I think is working really well in this piece. Moving on to what I think could be improved. Overall, the planar structure, the sort of dimension and structure of the face needs a bit of development. So I'm guessing that this artist was aiming for more of a stylized look and is not going for perfect realism, which is totally fine. But I think that zooming into the eyes here, this is where it really pops out at me. We can see that the artist understands that this is a plane of the face that's kind of going to the side and to the back, and this plane of the face here in front of the eye is going this direction. So we have kind of two different planes meeting up there. The eye feels a little bit like it is in between both planes, when really the eye should be on this front plane. So the eye should be kind of shortened a bit and made more to look like it is turning and facing, even though the person is looking at us and their gaze is going this direction, the actual structure of the eye should probably run along here a bit more and be a bit shorter. And you could still keep all of these stylized elements. You could still keep the white eyelashes, the overly white the overly white irises, the overly white areas of the eye, that could all be kept and you could stay consistent within your stylization. But you could do more of what you're doing on this eye here, where it has a little bit of foreshortening to make it look like it's curving away and is on this plane of the face, rather than on kind of straddling these two planes. So hope that makes sense. Again, another lovely piece. We are gonna jump right on to the next one. All right, this one is really fun. I'm excited to talk about this one because I have never been asked to critique this kind of a piece before. So it's a bit different than what I'm used to. And overall, the thing I think is working really well, the thing that I love about this piece is that there are tons of really satisfying and interesting little details. The artist has spent so much time putting in lots of different shapes and areas with line work that really kind of make the piece sing. So it's a simple piece in that it's a line drawing, but there's so much going on with all these little details, and that's one of my favorite elements of the piece. I think because it is just a line work piece and the line work is really, everything is resting on the line work, I think that that's the piece that could be improved. So if we zoom in here, some of these areas where the line kind of goes over the edge or the lines don't quite meet up, areas like this right here, some of these sections in here. I think if there was some neatness there, if the lines that are unfinished were finished off and the lines that kind of go over the edge or go somewhere where they're not supposed to go were neatened up somehow, I think that would take this piece to the next level and make it feel really professional. The other thing related to the line work, so this is still just in the same comment, the line work comment, is that right now, mostly the lines are all the same thickness. So there are a few areas where there's several lines meeting up, where things do look a little bit thicker. And you can even see right now, I don't think that was necessarily done intentionally on the artist's part. Maybe it was, but those areas already kind of pop out a bit in a really good way. So you could think through where you want the viewer's attention to be. Right now, the center of the composition is this thing here. And because all these lines are the same thicknesses, the edge of this line doesn't necessarily jump out and read as clearly as it might. So you could consider thickening up this line, thickening up some of the lines at the ends of, I don't know what this part of the mushroom is called, but basically if you thicken up the line at the center like you're doing here and at the edge up here, it'll give it more of a sense of form and dimension. So you can keep this just a line drawing, but you can add a lot more of a sense of form and finish if you finish off some of those ends and thicken up the lines in some strategic places. So another beautiful piece. We are gonna jump on to the next one. All right, this is the last piece here, this little ice cream painting. So my favorite thing here, I think the thing that is working really well is the detail in the cone, and not just the detail, but specifically, I think this person has paid a lot of attention to the drawing of it. The form looks pretty accurate. It looks like they have really paid attention to the shape of the cone and tried to get these little squares all going in the right direction. You have a sense of the cone curving. And I think that's a real strong point here. Overall, I think the biggest thing that could be improved are the values. So both the ice cream and the cone could use a little bit of value development. So I think probably part of the ice cream could go lighter. Just in my experience, ice cream is often really quite pale. And there are some areas that could be made a lot darker as well. So coming down here under the cone and maybe even trying to see what's going on here within some of the structure of the ice cream itself. So right now the ice cream is more or less, there is some value differentiation in these little dark pink areas, but more or less it is all kind of one mid-light value. I think you could tweak some of the values on both ends, both pushing the darkness and the lightness to describe more of a sense of form of the ice cream. And then on the cone, I think the same thing could happen. Some of the edges here and some of the in-between parts could be pushed back a little bit to further increase that sense of it being a object that curves. It's a cone. It's not a flat shape. So overall, I think that is what could be improved. Okay, so that is it for the critiques. Again, thank you so much to everybody who submitted their pieces. Their info will be in the description box, so please do go find them on social media, give them some love in the comments, let them know how much we appreciate them being brave and sharing their work with us. If you like this video and you want to have work critiqued, you can head on over to Patreon. Everybody, every single patron, even just from the $1 a month up, gets an opportunity to have their work critiqued. And of course, all patrons get to see the critique videos each month. And personally, I feel like even if it's not your piece that gets critiqued, as you can see from this video, you can learn a lot from it. And for me, that was one of the most valuable parts of art school, was the process of group critiques, and not just having my pieces talked about, but getting to see what people said about other folks' work and the comments that were made by the teachers about things that could be improved or things that were working well in those. So the critique videos have become really one of my favorite parts of Patreon. And I was excited to be able to share one of them with a wider YouTube community. So do let me know what you think of this video in the comments. If it's a really positive response, if you guys really like this, I think it is possible that we could maybe do a video like this periodically. I would be willing to think through how we could try approaching it for special occasions here on YouTube. So that's it. Thank you. As you can guess, thank you especially to the people who submitted these pieces of work. Thank you to my patrons for supporting this channel and making it possible to have weekly videos. Thank you to Meg for editing, and thank you to all of you all for watching. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please comment, share it with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And of course, if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And be sure to turn on the little bell so that you get the notifications when I publish a new video. All right, that is it. Hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.